as one of my, a new job I have is organizer with the Cincinnati Federation of Teachers. But I've also been helping to coordinate the Cincinnati Educational Justice Coalition for we're going into our 6th year. So you've heard a lot of words like baked in and policy and equity, and I can tell you that there are people who have been approaching the Ohio State Legislature up in Columbus for many years to try and get what they would like baked in. One example of that is the 1999 tax exemption agreement policy. 20 years ago, some developers and other folks went up to the state legislature and lobbied to get a carve out so that if you are building commercial or certain residential properties, that you can get a tax exemption on the improved value of your investment in the property. So that happened 20 years ago. Part of the language of the policy was that this would only be okay if the local municipality negotiated with the local school district to get basically the school district's permission to do this. Why do you think we would want the permission of the school district to exempt taxes, property taxes? I'm sorry? Right, so public education, by the way, this has been ruled unconstitutional 4 times over by the Supreme Court of Ohio, but we are still living with an unconstitutional policy that we fund our schools by property taxes for the most part. That, of course, is a baked-in inequity, right? If you walk into an elementary school in Anderson Township, it's going to look very different than if you walk into an elementary school in South Cumminsville. Even though our post-Brown v. Board of Ed, we're supposed to have a free, quality, equitable education for every American child, there's great disparities and differences in a child's education based on where they live. So part of that, so let me just bring it to today. So 20 years ago, the City Council and the CPS Board of Education agreed on a local deal whereby the Board of Ed would be okay with the city granting exemptions and abatements for commercial property as long as they make the schools whole, right? This term, making whole, meaning the schools may be losing money on the front end, but there would be some mechanisms whereby developers would cut a check directly to the school board and all will be well. At that point, they made, though, a cap of $5 million. You can imagine that 20 years ago, things were very different, right? In Cincinnati, the amount of development that was being abated, the amount of development happening. School funding has changed greatly from 20 years ago, right? We used to actually get a lot more school funding from the state. That has been cut over the years. So we are now in a position where, and I'll read a data point, 21% of all commercial and residential property in Cincinnati is now receiving some sort of abatement or exemption. That equals $3.4 billion has been foregone in exemptions. It is estimated that our school district is losing at least accidents. You probably saw a lot in the news lately about our children being run over by cars as they try to go to school in the morning. We actually had a young person lose their life last year on the west side about 1 year ago, a week ago. All our schools, many of our schools do not have crossing guards. I don't know if you can imagine that, but a lot of you in this room probably went to school maybe in the early 70s, mid 70s. Things were a lot different then. Just to imagine our young people of our city crossing these intersections with no adults there to help look out for them is really unacceptable. And what we're seeing is children are getting hurt. So part of the 1999 tax exemption agreement was the city council agreed 20 years ago that they would fund crossing guards as a part of the negotiation for foregoing all these millions and millions of dollars. City council has never made good on that promise. They have never made good on that promise. I'll just mention the fact that tonight, Councilmember Landsman is having a pedestrian town hall, which is all well and good, but those of us who've been working on this for years are saying we would actually like an ordinance with some money tied to it that will fund crossing guards. I would like to see that happen, right? We can have all the town halls we want, and I think that's the collective message here, and I'll close with this, is that many of us know of best practices, policies, other cities are doing this, and we're finally coming together to collectively say there is a set of policies. There is a set of solutions that can make all these things better. We can solve homelessness. We can protect our children as they go to school. These things are possible, but they are not possible if we don't have the political will and the people who are controlling our tax dollars refusing to have some courage and do the right thing.